Alejandro Vargas is one of the most important and coolest original characters introduced in the Modern Warfare reboot. He became the face of Los Vaqueros. He fought alongside Task Force 141 to dismantle Las Almas cartel and capture El Sin Nombre, who turned out to be Valeria Garza, a former Mexican Special Force operator who served alongside Alejandro. She was mainly responsible for much of the violence across Mexico, in particular Las Almas. So when the first trailers for Modern Warfare 4 arrived and I saw Valeria return, I immediately thought or expected to see Alejandro in some form. However, up to this point, he is still nowhere to be seen. With Valeria back and playing a somewhat pivotal role to the story of Modern Warfare 4, you wouldn't be wrong in feeling like there's something missing, especially when you take a closer look at what she's doing. Valeria is working with Price and helping him transport an extremely dangerous weapon through France, while also running from the CIA and Shadow Company. Now, wouldn't Alejandro want to be involved in getting her back? Maybe you can't call all of the Vaqueros and Rudy, but surely you could snatch Alejandro up for a quick mission or two to help the CIA as he is friends with Laswell. Or wouldn't he want to join Ghost and maybe Gas in capturing or stopping Valeria and Price? So some important questions to consider are, was Alejandro written out of the story? Or is Infinity Ward hiding his involvement? The last time we officially saw Alejandro was in the Modern Warfare 2 Warzone story. After Valeria escaped imprisonment, she fled towards Urzikstan, and Alejandro immediately went after her. But before leaving, he placed Rudy in command of Los Vaqueros.
¿Qué necesitas de mí, coronel?
Necesito que esperes aquí. No estaré solo.
Que vivan los vaqueros.
Pues que vivan las almas, compadre.
¡Muévanse!
Now, I think this is really important because Alejandro clearly sees the capture of Valeria as a top priority, and her leaving Mexico for even a little bit doesn't stop him from going after her. So I could see something similar happening in Modern Warfare 4. Her reappearance in MW4 also answers the question of whether Alejandro captured Valeria or not back in MW2 after she escaped. Clearly, he didn't. Alejandro failed to capture Valeria, and so I would assume that he eventually returned to Las Almas and resumed command of Los Vaqueros. I could see the possibility of Alejandro going back to Las Almas because after Valeria finished doing whatever the hell she was doing in the Middle East, she probably returned and Alejandro kept on the hunt. This leads me to believe that Infinity Ward is intentionally hiding Alejandro's role in the campaign. I've learned that with the campaign trailers and the reveals, sometimes there's stuff that's hidden or misdirected to fool us, the players, from guessing what's going on or to save some surprises for the campaign when we finally play them. So I could imagine them hiding Alejandro for a quote-unquote surprise return. Clearly, Infinity Ward knows how popular those characters from Modern Warfare 2 became, and they know that Alejandro and his Vaqueros are beloved by the Call of Duty story community. Imagine following Price and Valeria through Paris, trying to escape Shadow Company, and then boom, halfway through the mission, Alejandro appears and sees both Price and Valeria working together. Maybe this leads to a confrontation because Alejandro has been tracking Valeria ever since she escaped. I also selfishly would like to see a conflict between Price and Alejandro due to Price literally working with someone he's wanted captured for a long time, someone who is responsible for the death of many innocent lives and the death of many who have served alongside and under Alejandro. So imagine Alejandro wants to capture or kill Valeria, and Price can't let it happen because he needs her. This would create a situation where Alejandro could feel betrayed and think that Price needs to be stopped as well. This would be especially interesting because Alejandro and Price have worked together in the past, and Price even rescued him during the prison break in 2022. They clearly have a mutual respect for each other, so seeing them at odds would be really cool. Now, something that I found interesting while watching the In the War documentary was this image here. Now let's clear it up a little bit. This immediately caught my attention. The building reads Mexalio, Corporación Mexicana de Litio, which translates to Mexican Lithium Corporation. Now, I think this is a potential indicator that the campaign will return to Mexico because multiplayer maps usually come from locations in the campaign. If this facility is located in Mexico, it could be our first hint that the campaign eventually takes us back there. And if that's true, it immediately makes Alejandro Vargas' absence even more doubtful, especially because Alejandro's entire story revolves around protecting Mexico and dismantling Las Almas cartel. So if Price's mission eventually leads him into Mexican territory, it's difficult to imagine Alejandro not being involved when one of the most dangerous weapons in the world is moving through his own country. Now, before we move on from the Lithium Corporation, I would be an idiot not to ask, what exactly could that building mean? And what's its true importance to the story in Modern Warfare 4? One theory is that the corporation serves as a front for something bigger. Instead of the dangerous weapon being built there, the facility could be used to move it. Sites like these sometimes handle enormous amounts of freight every day. This would make them the perfect place to hide a dangerous weapon. If someone wanted to transport a weapon that governments aren't even supposed to know or acknowledge that exists, disguising it within a lithium corporation could be a very effective way of doing that without bringing any unwanted attention. Another possibility is that the lithium itself is directly connected to the weapon being transported by Price and Valeria. Maybe this facility is supplying one of the key materials needed to power it. That would immediately explain why this Mexican lithium corporation is visited during the story. Now, we're assuming, right, that is what happened. And I know that some of you might think it's crazy to assume all of this based on a multiplayer map that I barely got a glimpse of. But based on everything that we know, when you kind of put it together and you really think about it, maybe I'm not that far off. Or maybe I am, I don't know. What do you guys think? Now, something else to consider here is that Alejandro is a soldier and a protector, and maybe chasing Valeria over and over isn't something that he should still be obsessed with, or maybe something that he still even is obsessed with. Somebody could argue that in the 4 years since we last saw Alejandro, maybe his focus has shifted, and although we know that his original goal was to capture Valeria, it isn't top priority anymore. And this would be good for his character growth as well, rather than keeping him in the same place that he was in back in 2022. And now that I may have gotten some of your hopes up, let's talk about the less exciting and very real possibility that Alejandro Vargas simply isn't in Modern Warfare 4. At this point, there has been no official confirmation that he will be part of the game. We've seen Valeria return, we've seen Captain Price involved in this new operation, and we have seen several teasers surrounding this quote-unquote dangerous weapon. But Alejandro has not been confirmed in the trailers or promotional material that we've seen so far. And that doesn't mean that he's being saved for a surprise reveal. It is possible that he isn't involved in the main story at all. The developers may have decided to focus on other characters like Captain Price, Ghost, Valeria, and the Koreans. There may not be enough room for Alejandro and Los Vaqueros to play any part without distracting from the main plot. And as we well know, this wouldn't be the first time that a character disappears completely in Modern Warfare, because sometimes the story goes in a different direction, and just because a character is important in one chapter doesn't mean that he'll be important in the next chapter. Alejandro's story in Modern Warfare 2 was built around Valeria, Los Vaqueros, capturing El Sin Nombre, and by the end of that story in Modern Warfare 2, he already confronted Valeria and helped stop the immediate threat in Las Almas. Maybe that's all Alejandro was ever going to be, and Valeria, on the other hand, could still be useful to the plot because she has information and is willing to use her cartel to move this weapon, which is clearly a motivation for Price. All of this gives her a reason to come back to Modern Warfare 4, but it doesn't really give Alejandro a reason to return. Also, looking at the actor behind Alejandro, he hasn't said anything at all, and I'm sure if Infinity Ward did feature Alejandro, they would probably want to use him in their marketing. There's a lot of stuff going on already in Modern Warfare 4. Personally, I would love to see Alejandro return, but it might cause more harm than good. Now, I will admit, even still, Alejandro being absent from the game does feel a little bit weird. If Valeria were not involved at all in Modern Warfare 4, then Alejandro missing wouldn't be that big of a deal. I wouldn't even think about it. But Valeria is involved. So if Alejandro never returns, I think it may leave a lot of fans disappointed, myself included. So for now, all we can do is wait and see whether Alejandro Vargas has truly been left behind or whether Infinity Ward is saving him for one last surprise in Modern Warfare 4.